Hey guys, tonight we time travel to the beginning of history. Barefoot, bewildered, and probably covered in goat fur. You're standing in a place so old it makes Rome look like a startup. Dust swirls around your ankles. The air is thick with smoke and the scent of roasted onions. You're in ancient Sumeria, cradle of writing, bureaucracy, and probably the first really annoying meetings. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments, so I know where you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward on cracked clay roads, the sun already burning your eyelids. The sandals you wish you were wearing don't exist yet, and the ground is riddled with sharp pebbles that feel suspiciously like they've unionized against your soles. Children chase each other past you, giggling in a language made of clicks and sing-song vowels. You try to blend in, but your t-shirt that says "I paused my game for this" is not helping. In the distance, a ziggurat, a massive stepped pyramid, looms like an awkward layer cake made of mud bricks and mystery. You shuffle toward it, half curious, half sunburned, hoping for shade. The structure is dedicated to a sky god, whose name you can't pronounce and whose moods range from smite instantly to smite after lunch. At the base of the steps, a scribe crouches with a stylus, pressing symbols into a wet clay tablet. You peer over his shoulder. It looks like a grocery list written by someone who worships geometry. He scowls at you. "Do you mind?" he grumbles. You mumble something apologetic. He doesn't understand you, obviously. But judging by his eye roll, sarcasm transcends time. Historians still argue whether these tablets were purely administrative, or if they occasionally slipped in a bit of gossip. Something like barley shipment late.
Manager deeply incompetent.
Moon God disapproves. You wander past a pen of bleating goats, each with wildly expressive eyebrows. A shepherd tosses you a look like, "You feeding these or just loitering?" You nod solemnly and pretend you're inspecting for divine omens in their fur patterns. Eventually, you stumble into a bustling market where pottery clinks, fish glisten, and traders yell in a crescendo of bartering chaos. A woman offers you something fried and ambiguous. You bite into it. It tastes like lentils, regret, and a hint of thyme. Pretty decent, all things considered. As you meander, a priest grabs your wrist. "Come," he urges, eyes alight. You follow. Why? Because this dream doesn't come with consent forms. He pulls you into a shrine dimly lit by oil lamps and incantation smoke. A clay idol stares at you with 6 eyes and an expression that says, "I know what you did in 9th grade." The priest chants something that might be a blessing or a customer satisfaction survey. Fun fact, Sumerians may have invented beer accidentally. Some scholar types say a forgotten bowl of barley soup just got tipsy one day, and the rest is history. Fringe theories even suggest it was part of religious ceremonies. Picture that. Divine drunkenness in moderation. Blessed by goat-adorned high priests. Cheers. You're given a ceremonial robe that smells like damp camel. It's itchy. You bow when everyone else bows, clap when they clap, and narrowly avoid being offered as a human sacrifice. Yet you. Outside again, the heat hits you like a passive-aggressive slap. You pass a pair of young boys playing a game with rounded stones, possibly an early version of checkers or possibly gambling. One of them looks up and winks like he knows you're not from here. You wink back. He nods, cool as anything. You keep moving, eyes now catching something strange. A tiny wedge-shaped engraving at the edge of a merchant's stall, barely legible. It translates to something like, "Don't trust anyone who says they saw a lion in the sky." Seems like Sumerians had skeptics too. Suddenly a low hum builds in your ears. Not the wind, not the crowd. It's ticking, mechanical, familiar, and just like that the ziggurat melts. The air shimmers. Your body feels like it's made of scrolls and river mud and poppy seeds. Time folds again. As you slip into the next dream, because of course you do, you wonder if the gods of Sumeria ever dreamed of you. You land with a splash. Not dramatic, more like a lukewarm slap to the ankles. You're standing knee-deep in misty water, but instead of panic, all you feel is an overwhelming need for a towel and a coffee. The fog parts like a curtain in a high school play, and in front of you unfolds a view so perfectly symmetrical it could have been designed by someone with a tile obsession. You're in a Roman bathhouse and you're very, very underdressed. The air smells like lavender, old marble, and a hint of sweaty ambition. You squint down at your reflection in the pool, a bit distorted, which is flattering. A man with far too much chest hair and an ego, Shaped like an aqueduct, offers you a strigil, a curved metal tool used for scraping off oil and dirt. You accept it like it's a fancy back scratcher. When in Rome, right? Historians still argue whether the baths were more about hygiene, politics, or gossip. Probably all three. Because judging by the intense side eyes you're getting from toga-clad senators, there's a full-on ancient TMZ vibe happening in here. You slosh your way toward the caldarium, the hot bath, passing a mural of naked warriors wrestling boars. You don't ask. It's probably symbolic. Or maybe a gym ad. The caldarium greets you like a sauna with anger issues. Steam fogs your vision and the floor is so warm it feels like stepping on a grumpy sun. Romans liked their heat delivered through hippocausts. Stone floors with hot air pumped beneath them. It's brilliant. Unless you drop your sandal and accidentally invent foot soup. You sit beside a man whose nose curves like a scroll. He fans himself with a broken piece of parchment. Long day, he asks. You nod. Just got back from Sumerian. He laughs like you made a pun in Latin. Same. Your dream logic doesn't question this. He goes on about the emperor's latest scandal, something involving figs, a misunderstood poet, and a runaway ostrich. You offer a neutral hum, then focus on a statue of Neptune holding a trident, like he's about to grill some seafood. Fun fact, Romans believed baths were restorative for the body and spirit, which is cute considering they also believed in leech therapy and putting lead in their wine. But hey, that's antiquity for you. Progress and poison all in one sip. You float from the caldarium to the tepidarium, the lukewarm pool. This one's your vibe. Not too hot, not too cold, just confusing enough to lull your brain into soup mode. You lean back, staring at the ceiling. It's painted with clouds and cherubs who look slightly alarmed. Suddenly, a woman bursts in, draped in sheer linen, holding what looks like a scroll of complaints. Who keeps stealing my sandals? She roars. Everyone pretends not to hear her, which is impressive in the echo chamber of tile and water. You silently check your feet. Yours are sandal-less, so you're safe for now. You drift into the frigidarium, the cold pool. Your toes protest. Your ribs protest. Your entire circulatory system lodges a formal complaint. But you stay, because the pool is empty and quiet, and honestly a little magical. The marble glows faintly under the surface, and for a second, you think you see a gold coin fluttering like a fish. A boy nearby recites something from memory. Virgil maybe, or just a very dramatic shopping list. His voice is clear, measured. Time is the devourer of all things. You raise an eyebrow. Chill, you mutter, because he already has the cold water vibes covered. At the far end of the frigidarium, there's a small alcove with an inscription half worn by centuries of scrubbing. It reads something like, "Here we wash away the sins of sweat and ambition." Probably metaphorical. Probably not. You step out, skin goosebumped into oblivion, and wrap yourself in a towel that smells faintly of time and empire. As you pass the masseurs, hulking men armed with olive oil and low expectations, you catch a conversation about a gladiator's failed poetry career. It was apparently too emotional. Outside the baths, sunlight spills across a mosaic floor depicting sea nymphs and dolphins with weirdly muscular arms. You walk carefully, afraid to smudge 2,000 years of art with your damp dream toes. Near the exit, someone shouts your name or the dream version of it. You look back. The man from the tepidarium gives you a wink and says, "Don't forget to hydrate." Classic Roman. Then something shifts. The air feels like it's winding backward. Your towel flutters like it's caught in a wind tunnel. The mosaic ripples under your feet, and with a whisper of steam and sandalwood, the bathhouse dissolves. Time doesn't shout in these dreams. It just rearranges. Your feet crunch softly on gravel. It's night. You're standing beneath a paper lantern, its amber glow bobbing gently like a breath caught between centuries. All around you are wooden buildings, their roofs sweeping up like the wings of some mythical bird, and the air smells faintly of pine, charcoal, and grilled eel. You're in feudal Japan, and yes, your socks are wildly inappropriate. Your dream brain tries to catch up, scrambling for context, but all you know is it's quiet. Deep quiet. The kind that feels like a snowstorm just inhaled. Even the wind walks politely here. You shuffle forward down a narrow path lined with mossy stones. The gaita sandals on your feet clack like typewriters, loud, hollow, and designed by someone who hated toes. You pass under a torii gate, which creaks softly like it remembers every soul that's ever wandered beneath it. A monk appears from the mist, nods once. then keep sweeping a stone path that is already spotless. You nod back. This feels like a test. Everything here feels like a test. A shrine fox watches you from behind a stone lantern, its eyes reflecting moonlight and judgment. Fun fact, in Edo period Japan, some believed fox spirits, kitsune, could shapeshift into beautiful women or mischievous travelers. Some even married humans. Historians still argue whether these were metaphors, hallucinations, or just very persuasive foxes. You spot a rickety tea house with a low thatched roof and a sign that reads, something you absolutely can't translate. Still you enter, ducking your head. Inside, a woman in a soft green kimono kneels beside a steaming kettle. She doesn't speak, just pours a thin stream of matcha into a cup, so small it might as well be a thimble for an ant with refined taste. She hands it to you without ceremony. You sip. The tea tastes like grass, earth, and a vague memory of something your ancestors once felt proud of. It's also the hottest liquid in the galaxy. A man behind a paper screen coughs gently. You slide the door open a little. He's writing poetry by candlelight, his ink brush suspended above the page like it's afraid of commitment. The moon, he mutters, is just a slice of radish hanging in the dark soup. He looks up. Do you write? You think about it. Sometimes. He nods slowly. Then you know the loneliness of the comma. You do now. You leave the tea house without finishing the tea. You don't need caffeine in your dreams anyway. And the woman is sweeping already, as if you've already been gone. Outside, fireflies blink in secret Morse code. A bell tolls in the distance, deep and slow, like a heartbeat in a temple. You wander toward it, passing gardens where stones are raked into perfect lines and ponds, reflect the stars like they're showing off. A samurai stands at the edge of one pond, unmoving. His armor is polished, his hand resting gently on his sword hilt, and his expression says, "Don't ask questions unless you want answers that involve duels." You freeze. He glances at you. Then surprise, he bows. You bow lower, your knees cracking in protest. Dream body, same creaky joints. He speaks one word, observe. You follow his gaze. A carp, luminous and slow, swims in a perfect circle. Nothing happens. Then again, everything does. You watch it turn again. You forget to breathe. Historians still argue whether samurai followed the code of Bushido as strictly as the legends claim. Truth is, there were as many codes as there were warriors. Honor came in different flavors, some bloodier than others. You leave the pond in silence. Farther along the path, you come upon a rice field lit by moonlight. A farmer in a straw hat waves to you, then gestures toward a scarecrow that is somehow unsettling. It has teeth, sharp ones. You smile politely and pretend not to notice that its eyes follow you. You keep walking. Now you're in a village square where paper cranes hang from every tree, and children spin tops across the ground. One of them hands you a folded note. You unfold it to find time is a river. You are not the boat. You are the oar. You nod sagely like this makes perfect sense and tuck it into your sleeve. At the edge of the square, there's a small stage. A no performance is beginning. Actors in painted masks move slowly, too slowly, like underwater thoughts. The story makes no sense. Something about a ghost wife, a broken mirror, and an argument over pickled plums. But it's beautiful in a way that language can't touch. You blink and the stage is gone. The square is empty. Even the scarecrow has vanished. Then you feel it, a tug in your chest. Time is shifting again. The mist thickens, folding around you like a futon spun from dream silk, and you fall forward quietly, clumsily into the next impossible century. You land on wood. Not polished floorboards, not IKEA. This wood is raw, wet, and groaning like it's seen too many storms. Around you, mist, cold wind, and the scent of salt crusted everything. You're on a Viking longship, and judging by the casual grunting around you, it's not a cruise. The ship rocks beneath your feet, its dragon-headed prow slicing through, a steely gray sea like a very judgmental letter opener. Rain spatters your cheeks and someone nearby chuckles. "Green, aren't you?" he says, slapping your back with the tenderness of a tree falling on a tent. You don't respond because your jaw is frozen. You're handed a wooden bowl of something that smells like regret and onions. It's porridge, probably. It has things floating in it. Maybe mushrooms, maybe history. You slurp it anyway. It helps. A little. Fun fact, Viking crews often ate dried fish, barley mush, and something called scouse, a sort of stew that was never truly finished, just perpetually added to. A Viking crockpot, basically. Historians still argue whether the flavor improved, or just fermented, into an entirely new organism. You try to sit, but the rower next to you grunts again. No passengers. You pick up an oar. It weighs more than your entire high school trauma. You row once. Your shoulders file for divorce. Wind slams the sail and the boat lurches. A flock of seabirds screeches overhead. You look up expecting divine omens or dramatic weather. You get seagull poop right on your dream shirt. Classic. Still, you keep rowing. Something primal kicks in. Something loud, damp, and tired, but alive. The man beside you has a braid long enough to qualify as its own myth. He tells you they're heading toward Lindisfarne, an island off the English coast. Monks, he says, don't fight back much. You gulp. Do you believe in Odin? You ask, mostly to change the subject. He grins, only when he's watching. That tracks. Ahead, land emerges like a bruise on the horizon. Jagged cliffs, windswept pines, and the distant outline of a monastery that has no idea what's coming. Your boat scrapes into the shallows, feet splash into water. Shields go up. You hesitate. The braid man offers you a helmet. It's too big. You wear it anyway. It's dented, smells like old cheese, and makes you feel like a metal mushroom. You march behind the others. Heart pounding, not with violence, but with absurdity. You're not a raider. You're a sleepwalker with excellent historical timing. You don't pillage. Instead, you wander. Inside the monastery, candles flicker against stone walls and a lone monk scribbles frantically. He looks up, startled but not afraid. You're not one of them, he whispers. You nod. No, I'm just visiting. He gestures toward an illuminated manuscript. Gold ink swirls across vellum like frost on glass. It's a scene of angels battling demons, or maybe just a family dinner gone bad. You reach out but don't touch. Even in dreams, some things feel sacred. Outside, shouting fades into laughter. Someone singing a battle song about mead and goats, and a woman named Brynja, who owns 7 axes and no patience. You back away, slip out a side door, and find yourself at the edge of a cliff. Below, your ship bobs quietly. To your left, a runestone carved with serpents and unreadable intentions. You trace a line of symbols with your finger. One looks like a bird, one like a hammer, one suspiciously like a Wi-Fi icon. Dream logic strikes again. A strange hush settles. Even the wind holds its breath. You sit on the stone, helmet in your lap, and wonder, what did these men dream about? Did they see dragons in the mist, or just endless rowing? The rhythm of oars like a lullaby sung by sore arms. Historians still argue whether Viking raids were organized, campaigns, or chaotic freelance adventures. The truth is probably both glory and grocery lists. The sky darkens. Clouds roll in like wet wool. You close your eyes just for a second, just long enough to hear the creak of rope, the groan of the mast, the quiet hum of a horizon shifting, and with that the sea dissolves, and the boat and the helmet, and the man with the braid. Your hands now hold something different, a goblet, and there's laughter in the air, rich, greasy, and medieval. Your goblet sloshes unexpectedly. It smells like fermented apples and something legally ambiguous. You blink and realize you're now seated at a medieval feast. The kind that looks fun from a distance but up close is a sweaty tangle of questionable hygiene and louder than necessary singing. You're at the far end of a massive wooden table, trying to look inconspicuous, while balancing on a 3-legged stool that wobbles with every nobleman's belch. Tapestries hang from the stone walls, depicting scenes of valor, dragons, and one guy suspiciously just holding cheese. Before you, a trench of food has been piled on what seems to be bread, but is definitely doubling as a plate. There's roast pig, boiled cabbage, a sad-looking eel, and a turnip carved into a vague face. A jester hops onto the table mid-cartwheel, juggling something that might be apples or possibly onions. One lands in your goblet, he winks. You are now part of the show. To your left, a knight chews slowly while eyeing your sleeves, like he might duel you for the pattern. To your right, a monk lectures a goose. We do not sin with impure honking, he says very seriously. Fun fact, in the Middle Ages, animals were sometimes put on trial. Yes, real trials. Pigs, dogs, even insects were charged with crimes. Historians still argue whether these were symbolic gestures or society's earliest attempt to deal with noisy geese. Someone shouts to forks, and half the room boos. You pretend to cheer. One man stands and insists that using a tiny Pronged metal instrument is clearly devil's work. Another insists it keeps one's tunic cleaner. A lively theological argument breaks out, interrupted only by someone sneezing directly onto a loaf of bread. You duck a flying drumstick. The feast lurches onward like a slow, drunken parade of gravy and moral confusion. A lute player begins a haunting tune, only to be drowned out by someone, slamming a tankard and demanding a song about pickled fish. The room obliges. It's catchy. You're handed a skewer of something blackened and spicy. It tastes like chicken that read Dante's Inferno and took it personally. Your eyes water. The jester applauds your bravery. Suddenly, a dog streaks through the hall wearing what looks like a crown made of bread crust. Everyone cheers. Sir Barks-a-Lot returns victorious. Someone proclaims. You nod like this is fine. A woman in a velvet gown asks what fiefdom you come from. You panic. Netflix, you say. She gasps. An elvish name. A poet stands up to recite an epic verse. It rhymes honor with donor and then with boner, which gets a mixed reaction. The monk gasps. The goose honks. Somewhere in the rafters, a pigeon explodes with laughter. A roast swan is paraded through the hall. You lock eyes with it. It looks too real. Too aware. You look away. You try to excuse yourself, but the king, because of course there's a king, demands entertainment. His beard is full of crumbs and small secrets. He claps and all heads turn toward you. You, he bellows. Tell us of your quests. You stand. You panic. You clear your throat. I once survived Roman bathwater. The crowd murmurs with awe. Someone drops a mutton bone. And I shared a boat with a Viking who braided his beard with seaweed. A knight faints. A lady fans herself dramatically. And before that, you say, warming to it now, I drank tea with a poet who called the moon a radish. Dead silence. Then thunderous applause. The king rises. You shall be dubbed the Dreamwalker. He raises a greasy leg of lamb like a sword, and accidentally slaps your shoulder with it. You are now a knight of dubious honor and excellent storytelling. The jester bows. The goose nods. Sir Barks-a-Lot howls in solidarity. You take your seat again, heart racing, still unsure how you avoided becoming a pie ingredient. Fun fact. Medieval banquets could last for hours or even days, and often included bizarre foods like peacock redressed in its own feathers, or pies that released live birds when sliced. Surprise, indeed. The feast begins to fade now. The candles gutter. The air smells less of meat and more of memory. You lean back in your stool, which promptly gives out. You fall not to the floor, but through it. Through stone. Through time. Into the scent of jasmine and warm silk. Your back lands gently, not on wood or stone or Viking ore, but something much softer, embroidered cushions. The air is thick with perfume, jasmine, saffron, and mangoes so ripe they practically hum. You sit up slowly, dream-dazed, and find yourself surrounded by arches, silks, and pillars that gleam like carved sugar under the morning sun. You're in Mughal India, and either you've just been reincarnated as royalty, or you've wandered into the world's most indulgent daydream. A peacock struts past you unbothered and faintly judgy. Behind it, a procession of attendants walks by, one carrying a parasol, another balancing a bowl of pomegranates, and one just fanning the air like it owes them money. You scramble to your feet, accidentally stepping on a rug so intricate it might actually be a poem. "Ah, the cook has arrived," says a voice. You freeze. A man in elaborate robes, with a beard like a monsoon cloud and eyebrows that deserve their own palace, is peering at you curiously. "You brought the saffron?" You nod slowly. You do not, in fact, have the saffron, but your dream self is apparently very confident. He smiles. "Good. The Emperor's mango sorbet must not disappoint today. You are now the royal dessert chef. This is happening." Fun fact, the Mughals were obsessed with mangoes. Emperor Akbar reportedly had over 100,000 mango trees planted. Some scholars even argue whether mango diplomacy was a real thing, gifting rare fruits as political gestures. You're ushered into a kitchen unlike any you've seen. No granite counters or microwave beeps here. This is all copper pots, open flames, and women grinding spices by hand with movements passed down like lullabies. You watch them fold cardamom into creamy kulfi, their hands stained golden by turmeric and thyme. Someone places a spoon in your hand. Stir. You stir. "Clockwise," they hiss. "Always clockwise." You nod, of course. Dream etiquette. Later, you're led through marble corridors that seem to glow from within. You pass gardens where fountains whisper secrets to sleepy roses. Courtiers glide past in jeweled turbans, trailing laughter like perfume. A tiny girl offers you a marigold, then vanishes into a cloud of silk. Eventually, you're brought to a courtyard pavilion, open to the sky. The emperor sits atop a low throne, surrounded by cushions, musicians, and what appears to be a debating parrot. He gestures lazily for your dessert. The sorbet, somehow made by your hands, or at least by your timeline's version of you, is presented in a dish so delicate it could shatter from your anxiety alone. He tastes it, pauses, nods once. You exhale. The musicians strike up a tune. Flutes, sitars, and drums weave through the air like lazy fireflies. You're invited to sit, and someone hands you a tiny cup of rose-scented sherbet water. It tastes like liquid poetry if poetry had a chilled citrus aftershock. A noblewoman leans over. "You have kind eyes," she says, "but your turban is backwards." You blush. Dream fashion is complicated. She laughs and then asks, "Do you believe in reincarnation?" You think, "Maybe I'm just a traveler." She smiles. "Aren't we all?" Fun fact, Mughal architecture combined Persian, Islamic, and Indian influences. The Taj Mahal, built in the 17th century, is not just a tomb, it's a love letter carved in white marble, designed with perfect symmetry, down to how the shadows fall at dawn and dusk. As the sun dips lower, the palace begins to shimmer, every surface catching the golden light like it's trying to hold the day in place. A boy runs past you holding a kite, laughing like the wind belongs to him. You close your eyes. Then music distorts. Silk becomes canvas. Perfume fades into sawdust and paint. And someone shouts, "No, no, no! That nose is all wrong." You jerk your head up, nearly knocking over a wooden easel. Paint fumes hit your nostrils like an opinionated pigeon. You're in a cramped Renaissance painter's studio, and yes, someone is very upset about a nose. A man with ink-stained fingers and sleeves, too dramatic for daily life, throws his hands in the air. "It's not symbolic enough," he cries. "Where's the melancholy? The divinity? The existential weight of forehead curvature?" You glance at the canvas in question. It's a portrait of a lady with one eye slightly higher than the other, and a faint smirk, like she just heard a joke in Latin. The nose is fine, a little bold perhaps, but you've seen worse. Remember that eel at the medieval feast? You try to back away quietly, but your elbow knocks over a jar of crimson pigment. It spills like scandal across the wooden floor. The artist gasps. "That was my last cochineal." Fun fact, cochineal is a red dye made from crushed insects. Highly prized in Renaissance Europe, it took thousands of bugs to make a single ounce. Historians still argue whether artists cared more about the color itself or the exotic trade routes it symbolized. You're handed a brush without warning. "Make yourself useful," the painter mutters. And so you do. You dip, you swirl, you dab, carefully adding blush to a cheek that looks far too intelligent for its own good. The room is cluttered with half-finished masterpieces. Broken chairs and a cat asleep inside a basket of gold leaf. The window is cracked open. Outside, the city hums. Florence or Venice or somewhere, with enough powdered wigs and soft rebellion to fuel generations of drama. You hear a lute, a cough, and someone yelling about an unpaid commission. A younger apprentice whispers, "We're working on a ceiling next. Massive. God. Fingers the whole thing." You raise your eyebrows. "Michelangelo?" "No," he shrugs. "His cousin. Good with clouds." Someone else hands you a glass of wine because of course there's wine. It tastes like cherry pits and indecision. Across the room, a scholar in robes paces while reading aloud from a scroll on divine proportion. The nose, he insists, must align with the truth of the soul's triangle. You blink. "Soul's triangle?" He waves you off. Scholars still debate that. Behind him, a small sketch pinned to the wall catches your eye. A machine, a glider, a man with wings strapped to his back and eyes full of rain? You look closer. Da Vinci. Dream logic says yes. History says probably. The artist approaches again. "You've ruined the nose," he sighs, "but improve the sadness. It will sell well." You're not sure if that's a compliment. Time stretches. Light pools and golden puddles across the floor. The smell of turpentine is sharp but oddly comforting. The cat yawns. A woman hums as she grinds lapis lazuli into a shimmer of sky blue. The pigment, you learn, costs more than gold. Fun fact, ultramarine made from lapis lazuli was reserved for the Virgin Mary's robes because it was so expensive. Art became theology through color. The bluer the painting, the holier the budget. The door bursts open. A merchant storms in, demanding to know why his portrait looks like he's mourning his own wealth. "That's not ennui," he says. "That's gout." The artist waves a dismissive hand. It's fashionable now. You slip out while they argue, back into a narrow alleyway drenched in sunlight and soft dust. Laundry flaps from windows above you like prayer flags. Pigeons scatter. A street musician plays a tune so wistful it might have been composed by a homesick cloud. You wander. You pass a bookshop selling handwritten journals with too many commas. A woman on a balcony tosses you a flower. It lands in your hair. A baker calls out, offering warm bread stuffed with something spicy and unidentifiable. You take it. It's perfect. Then the shadows shift. A chill in the air. The scent of sea salt and iron. A pirate bell rings in the back of your mind. Time bends again. Paint flakes into parchment. Brushes become quills. And your hand is suddenly holding an abacus? Oh no. The abacus clacks in your hand as the world tilts with a salty heave. You are no longer surrounded by pigment and philosophical noses. Instead, you're hunched in a candle-lit pirate cabin, squinting at what appears to be an inventory of loot, written in handwriting, so sloppy it could legally qualify as abstract art. Gold coins, casks of rum, one suspiciously labeled singing sword, and a line that just says Larry? A floorboard creaks. The ship groans like it's got indigestion. You glance up through a grimy porthole and see endless sea, slate blue, dotted with gulls that look like they're judging your math. Someone kicks open the door behind you. A pirate, massive, bearded, and wearing a coat that used to be red and is now mostly patches and hubris. "There ye are, quartermaster," he bellows. Oh no, you've been promoted. Apparently your dream self is now the accountant of this floating chaos, responsible for rations, rum ratios, and who gets how much after a successful raid. No pressure. He slaps a wet map in front of you. Sort this. Tell me if Jenkins gets a share this time. He did scream the loudest. You nod with fake confidence. Of course. Loudness is an asset class. Fun fact. Pirate ships were surprisingly democratic. Crews often voted on captains and had written codes governing everything from loot division to bedtime. Historians still argue whether this made pirates early anarchists or just really organized chaos goblins. You look down at your accounting tools. Inkpot, feather quill, biscuit with a bite taken out of it, probably not yours, and a ledger stained with what might be blood or really enthusiastic wine. You scribble something about Jenkins, getting half a barrel of pickled fish and a third of the parrot, just to be safe. A knock. A tiny pirate with spectacles and a wooden leg pokes his head in. Captain wants to know if we're solvent. You blink. Are we floating? Then we're solvent. He nods solemnly. Good enough. You follow him topside. The deck is alive with shouting, laughter, and the faint sound of someone tuning a violin with no strings. The crew is an orchestra of chaos. Sword dancers, ale slingers, and someone building a hammock from stolen curtains. A parrot flies past screaming, "Unhand my cheese." No one questions it. The captain, now balancing precariously on the bowsprit, yells, "Today we chase the moon vault." You don't ask what that is. Probably best. Instead, you sit by a barrel and start doing what accountants do best. People watch while pretending to calculate. Nearby, two pirates argue over whether a captured map is real or actually a placemat from a very old tavern. Another is sketching a tattoo on his own leg. A third is holding up a spoon and yelling at the sky, demanding revenge for soup. You glance at the crew manifest, noting that Larry has now been crossed out and replaced with maybe Gary. In a moment of inspiration, you draw a tiny skull next to it and write audit pending. Fun fact, pirates often flew false flags to confuse enemy ships. 1 minute they'd appear as Spanish merchants, the next, surprise, skull and crossbones. Dream piracy apparently includes dramatic costume changes in spreadsheet, tabs labeled raid drafts. The ship hits a wave. You stumble. The ledger flies out of your hand, smacks Jenkins in the face, and lands perfectly in a bucket of tar. No one seems bothered. Later, as the sun melts into the ocean, the crew gathers for what they call evening plunder yoga. You don't ask. You just join in, attempting a wobbly downward cutlass. The sea is calm now. Lanterns sway. Someone's humming an old sea ballad. about a mermaid who taxes sailors for emotional damage. You close your eyes just for a moment, and then silence. No creak of rope, no bird screams, no soup revenge, just dust and bone and a glass dome reflecting candlelight. You open your eyes to a new room, one filled with jars, shadows, and oddities too strange to name. You are now an exhibit. You are standing still, very still, in the middle of a 19th century curiosity cabinet. It takes a moment for your brain to catch up. You're surrounded by shelves upon shelves of things that should not be in jars, but definitely are. Pickled reptiles, shrunken heads, a bird with 3 beaks, a monocled frog preserved in amber who might be judging your entire ancestry. Your reflection wavers in the glass door of a display case, labeled unclassified vertebrate, possibly mischievous. The room is quiet, the kind of hush that museums dream about. A wooden sign above you reads Cabinet of Wonder, 1842. Please do not touch yourself or anything else. You are not alone. A tall, narrow man with wild hair and an enthusiasm. Problem bustles past you in a cloud of chalk dust. Ah, he exclaims, waving a pair of tweezers at what might be a fossilized pineapple. Finally, proof that fruit once had claws. You open your mouth to question that. Close it again. Not worth it. He spins toward you. You're the assistant, aren't you? You nod. Good. Start with the radium display. Visitors love a healthy glow. Fun fact, in the late 1800s, radium was considered a miracle substance. It appeared in everything from toothpaste to chocolate, and yes, people actually brushed their teeth with radioactive paste. Historians still argue whether the glow in the dark coffin trend was intentional or just posthumously convenient. You find yourself polishing a glass dome that contains what appears to be a platypus with deer antlers. The label reads, Platypelgornis maximus. Possibly noble. There's a tiny velvet cape around its middle. You whisper, good luck out there, buddy. A child walks by, nose pressed to the glass. Mummy, why is it smiling like that? You smile too. You're not sure why. The man returns, arms full of bones and theories. Did you alphabetize the shrunken heads? You check your notes. By width or mood? He blinks, a mood obviously. We're not savages. The walls are lined with dusty volumes. Leather-bound journals filled with sketches of mythical creatures, taxonomies of dreams, and a half-finished essay on why dust might be alive. You flip through one idly. A pressed daisy falls out, perfectly preserved. You put it in your pocket. Maybe it'll grow into a memory later. You climb a ladder to reorganize the top shelf and nearly knock over a bust of Aristotle. Except it's labeled not Aristotle, but close. The room below is now filled with visitors, murmuring as they point at strange devices and stranger logic. A gentleman with a handlebar, mustache pokes at a model labeled emotion-powered umbrella. It hisses at him. He applauds. The curator claps his hands. Everyone! Prepare for the daily tour of discredited genius. People gather as he points to a contraption involving brass wings and pigeon feathers. This, he beams, was the first attempt at wearable levitation. It only injured 4 people. Applause. You trail behind, adjusting mislabeled signs as he rants, joyfully about telepathic snails and the moral intelligence of buttons. He ends the tour beside a taxidermied squirrel posed in mid-fencing stance. Our finest duelist, retired undefeated. The group disperses, laughing, whispering, leaving behind the gentle hum of glass cases and forgotten dreams. Later, you find a dusty drawer marked personal oddities. Inside, a cracked monocle, a lock of blue hair, and a note that simply reads, when the stars grow tired, meet me at the laundromat. You pause. The air shifts. The light dims. Time hiccups. And suddenly the jars flicker out of view. The platypus bows. The squirrel salutes. The whole cabinet folds in on itself like a magician's hat. Your feet land on tiles. The fluorescent hum of overhead lights buzzes in your ear like an old television warming up. And somewhere very close you hear a dryer ding. You're standing in a laundromat. Not the sterile kind, no. This one glows faintly lilac and the machines are humming like monks mid-nap. There's a vending machine stocked with existential gum and socks that may or may not be yours. A sign above reads, Time Space Laundromat, fold your realities before leaving. You turn slowly. There you are, sitting on a bench in a hoodie that matches yours exactly. right down to the mysterious mustard stain and the fraying cuffs. Another you. He too looks up, gives a sheepish half-smile, and gestures to the seat beside him. You sit. You've been busy, he says. Sumeria, bathhouses, pirates, very ambitious for someone who once fainted during algebra. You shrug. They don't have math tests in dreams. He laughs. They do. You just haven't reached that aisle yet. Around you, the dryer spins slowly, each drum showing flickers of light and memory. In one, a Viking shouts triumphantly over a soup cauldron. In another, a samurai kneels beside a quiet pond. A third holds a swirling galaxy of powdered wigs, ghost geese, and that suspiciously French eel. Your other self leans forward, elbows on knees. Did you see her? Who? The woman in Mughal India. With the flower. The eyes, the timing. You nod slowly. I always do, he says. She's in every dream. Different form, same pause. Like she's almost about to say something. You think about the marigold in your sleeve. Still there, warm and impossible. A buzzer rings. One of the washers lights up. You get up, open the hatch, and instead of damp jeans and regret, out spills a pile of neatly folded moments, a parchment page from a Renaissance sketchbook, a coin etched with a forgotten emperor, a feather that glows faintly when held. Your other self grins. You've got quite the collection. Fun fact, in speculative physics, there are theories about quantum selves, alternate versions of you in parallel timelines. Some say dreams are where the walls between versions thin, just enough to wave. Historians still argue whether this is metaphor or math in a very poetic disguise. You watch another dream unfold in the dryer next to you. A classroom. A chalkboard. A younger you writing, "What if I don't wake up?" and underlining it 3 times. You sigh, toss a pair of moon-patterned socks onto the bench, and say, "So what now?" Your counterpart leans back, cracking his knuckles. Now we fold everything. You both get to work, folding a toga, a monk's robe, a pirate bandana still damp with seawater, each piece soft, worn, full of something unspoken. You fold carefully, smoothing creases from centuries. Outside the window, stars blink lazily behind clouds shaped, like ziggurats and castles and whales with monocles. Inside, time stretches like warm fabric. You don't rush. The final piece is the hoodie. Yours. Familiar. It smells faintly of sleep and old pages. You fold it last. Your twin stands, slings a laundry bag over one shoulder, and heads for the glowing door marked exit. Same dream next time. He pauses, looks back. Remember to breathe slower near the end. That's when the story fades. You nod. The door shuts softly, and you are alone. Only not alone. Just still. The machines wind down. The hum dims. The lights soften. And now, everything slows. Your breath. The lights overhead. The last few thoughts that still tiptoe around behind your eyes. The laundromat dims until it's almost just memory. Like the scent of bread after it's gone, or the shape of laughter you heard once in a hallway you can't quite place. You lean back on the bench, and it fits your body like it was made from all the other benches you've ever rested on. Outside, the moon doesn't rise. It just waits. The machines fall silent. The air stills. Even the marigold in your sleeve goes quiet. You think of the Sumerian idol with 6 eyes, of the goose monk's lecture, of mango sorbet and fencing squirrels and a boy with a star-shaped kite. They drift by, not as stories, not even as dreams, just soft layers of self, folded gently and placed in a drawer you may never open again. And that's okay. You don't need to remember all of it. You just need to know you went, that you wandered through time with bare feet and borrowed names, that you folded history and weirdness and warmth into one long, slow exhale. And now? Now you rest. Let the weight of dreams dissolve into your pillow. Let the world for just a little while longer carry on without you. And if you wake with the taste of cardamom on your tongue, or find a feather on your windowsill, well, maybe you just brought a little souvenir back. Sweet dreams.